So the group stages of Worlds have started, and the one game that everybody is talking about is Fnatic versus the Gigabyte Marines. Some people are calling it cheese from the Gigabyte Marines, and some people are saying it's some very brilliant strategic innovation coming through from them, and the way they're inventing around the current meta. I'm going to be breaking some of that down and going through the decisions that both of these two teams made, and how Fnatic could have reacted better to the Gigabyte Marines strategy. And the other games for Worlds, I think Dongzhu versus Immortals, you can probably take a look at that if you haven't caught it yet. If you want to take a look at how team fights are managed by these Korean teams in the mid to late game, the way they rush the Baron and then make the play down the mid lane. The same thing goes to Samsung versus G2, team fight management, and how do these Korean teams set themselves up for success in these cases. But let's jump into game for Fnatic versus Gigabyte Marines, and let's take a look at how the cookie crumbled for Fnatic.
Now we have to look at what are they executing with this. What does the Nocturne provide? One
So
would
over here,
assume
what
that
we are
this is
looking
like a
at
nice
is the
setup
Gigabyte
to
Marines. They
provide
have been
a lot of
doing
that
these kind of
speed and
strategies
bottom
since the
pressure
spring split,
for
where they go
the
for the
type of
Lulu
core that we
Tristana. They
is
play a
looking from.
tank top
And
laner
I think it's
that
interesting
has
that
rather
kind of
easy
jungling side
access
of
to
things as
wave
well.
clear,
Whenever you see a champion like
and then they go for
Outflash,
the super
you would
leash
want
and
to
the
keep
power
that
level of
lane
the
as
jungler.
much as,
So
oh,
the
okay,
way
sure,
this has
front lane
evolved
is
for
good,
them is that
right,
the
for
way they have
starter
super
and
leash for the
win some
jungler and
skirmishes,
the way they
but
set things
actually
up
also
for the support in
vulnerability
this
as
case,
well.
going
You
for the
have to
ignite as well as
account
heal.
for it.
So
So,
these are
it's
slightly
nice that
new
Gigabyte
things that are
Marines
coming through
is
from the
equally
Gigabyte Marines
early
that
game
they have not
jungler
shown
champion.
before. But
Gigabyte
since
has
MSI,
a
since
Nocturne
Spring
in
Split,
this game
they
as
showed
well.
us at
So
Rift
if
Rivals
that
as
was ever
well,
the case,
even
of
in the
course, we would
domestic
go down
GPL
there
league,
and
they
do a
have been
Timber
going
the
for these
Fight
kind
or
of
Living
lane
Dragon
swaps,
jungle
and it has been a
before
very
teleport
successful
that are
tactic
running
for them.
around top lane
Now, why
expecting
do these
that
lane
Nocturne
swaps make so much sense in
instead of
this
a
case?
healer and a solo
Because when you go
to
for a
come
lane
down and
swap
put a lot of
scenario, this
pressure
kind of
through
throws it back
towards
to
these other
season
lanes,
5, where you end
especially
up
with a
in a
champion like Gambit.
situation where you
Of course, there
isolate
is
the
no
mid lane
crits in mid
and
lane
you kind of
caps, so you are
exchange
becoming
the
taken to steal.
resource
Mid price on bottom
allocation
lane for that
between the
Nova
top
Flash
laners as well
good
as the
for
AD
many
carries.
parts of the
So what's
game.
going to
The
happen
impact
in
is
these kind of
significant.
scenarios is that your top laner
And here
is
we
going to
go.
fall
Kind of
behind on
there for
experience as well
Nocturne.
as gold for
Switch
both
towards
sides.
Strategy
You're
Champion
going to
and
see
Samsung
Archie as
came
well as
by with
SOAS being
lane swaps. We
extremely,
did.
extremely
So
far
switching
behind
lanes
in
to fight
CS
over
as well
the
as
Here we go.
experience. They will be
Gigabyte
the
Marines
lowest
looking to
level player
secure
in the
the
game
rebound.
for
Trying to
quite a
maintain some
fair bit
lane.
of it. And
It's
what's
all
going to
about
happen is that they're
controversial
going to
strategy
become
with
a
that top
second
laner first
support,
couple of times.
one that has got
Down bottom,
teleport.
we see SOAS already starting
And
to
this makes a lot of
see
sense. So
the
for
benefit.
Gigabyte Marines,
It's
they're playing
another
two
way of
effectively two
also
assassins. They have the
getting
Nocturne,
around,
they have the
oh, now we
Kassadin.
have a Lulu
So they're
Shadow
playing to
Flash,
a
no problem.
1-3-1
Top lane
strategy of
might get
sorts, where they
pushed
want to
away.
attack the
Now
side
we're
lanes
looking
very
for
well.
kind of
And by
that
going
side.
for this
Gigabyte
kind of
taking a
swap
good counter
this
pick.
early on,
At
it
least in the
sets
trade
SOS
there,
behind. And
and
you shoot the
that
tank
sway them going forward.
Maokai,
Now we're looking
you
to
look at
do
the
Dongzhu
Kassadin, you
on
look at the
top
Galio,
laner and
it's
jungler
two AP
working
champion.
together.
It's very
And
easy
that
for
gives
him
them
to
a bit of a
itemize in
map.
these kind of
Kicking the old
scenarios.
school in a
But
way with
now,
that Nova
because of the
Galio
way they
top
go for
lane.
this lane
That
swap, it
fleets of
sets
vision
him up
all
so
together
that
as
he's
you would
behind.
expect. A big thing with
Archie
this
is behind
main
as well,
lane coming
and it
out of
is
the
very
Tristana
easy
is
for
looking for some
Optimus
picks.
and
No
Levi,
one's a
very
bit weak.
mobile
Looking to
assassin
pick
type
both sides.
champions,
A moment
to
needed to
rotate to the
group up.
side
They
lanes
could go
and
back
pick
to
him
the
off,
bottom lane.
because
Could
SOAS
see
would no
here
longer be able
Riptopper
to
going to
hold lane
bottom lane.
against the
Now
Kassadin,
level 4
and
Levi
the threat of
coming
the
out. Every
Nocturne
little bit of
consistently
experience
going for the
with
paranoia onto
Nocturne
him
having to
will be
rely on.
something that he has to
Don't
watch
know
out
if
for, and
Archie
his
here
ability
tries
to
to get
hold a
into
lane and
his
push it out
lane,
to get
but
any form of lane
Fnatic still
priority would be
focusing on
very
that bottom
difficult to do
side.
at the
Raptors
later
here,
stages of the
Raptors
game.
on the way. Even though there
So
are wards, it's gonna be a
let's
party.
pause this a little bit here, and we talk about also responses to what the Gigabyte Marines are doing. Fnatic, they elected to go for this 5-man bot, something that they have been kind of planning for from the way they're setting up the wave in the bot lane. But if you've ever played StarCraft or you've ever tried to learn how to play StarCraft, this is one of those moments where you see something that you've never seen before and you kind of get an idea of what the response is like, but because you've never actually practiced it, you kind of panic and you go in there and it's like, oh, what's happening? And you mess up the execution, and things end up very bad for you. So the idea here that Fnatic wants to do is they want to deny Archie's experience under the turret as well. They kill him once, they kill him twice, and then Archie gets set very far behind SOAS, and they're able to pick up the first blood turret on the bottom side of the map. Now, this is where things start to fall apart for Fnatic. I actually think this 5-man dive bot is an okay response. They've got quite a few other options, such as matching the 2v2 at the top side by sending Broxah to path upwards as well, but that will set him behind Levi as well. It will set Gigabyte Marines into a rather comfortable situation where they still achieve what they want by forcing the jungler and top laner to share experience and force them to fall behind in terms of experience with regards to the Kassadin in this scenario. So that response is a much lower risk kind of situation, but kind of plays into what Gigabyte Marines wants. But this going for this 5-man dive on bot, it's slightly more high risk, and I have to feel that the reward is higher as well going for this option. Now, the mistake here that they make is that they don't coordinate this properly. They have the creep wave coming through. Elise is level 3, she has the ability to reset aggro pretty well, and she can dodge a turret shot on top of that. So the person who should be drawing aggro in this scenario is actually Broxa, because Justice goes forward, he goes gets an auto off, and then he uses the tether on the wrong champion. The target here is Archie. They want to kill Archie once, he's going to teleport back, and then you kill him a second time, and then Archie ends up in the exact same situation as Soaz, where he's not able to pick him any CS, and you deny him all these experience as well. And I actually have to feel that Fnatic, they were prepared, or they had an idea of how to deal with this, because if you look at the itemization, usually Maokai against Galio, I do think you do get the Duran's ring in that situation, but they kind of like, okay, they go for the Tristan or Lulu, maybe getting a Duran shield would be better in this case. But that aside, the target here should be Archie, but Jessis, he gets the tether onto the wrong champion, tethers Levi instead, who proceeds to spell shield it, and that's the first burst of CC down. And already without even achieving much. Okay, they finally do get to get in the end. There's a 5-man commitment towards it, but 2 summon the spells, 3 summon the spells down on the side of Fnatic, and this is where I feel that they overchase a little bit. So now Archie starts to teleport back down again. He's trying to pick up the wave. They spend too much time chasing onto Optimus into Levi. The focus here, Q Archie twice under his own turret, and then zone Levi and Optimus off the experience. They don't really need to chase them down to this extent. So they do get the teleport back in, and because the rest of Fnatic is not in place, this is a rather botched execution in terms of how you're going to conduct this dive to deny out the top lane of Gigabyte Marines that experience that SOAS has currently been denied as well. The game actually does normalize out at a later point of time. So what happens after here is that Fnatic and Gigabyte Marines, they enter kind of this race scenario. So what we're going to be looking at today is 2 concepts. The first one is this concept of tempo, and the second one is this concept of how to manage your rotation paths in the split map scenario. This is something that we see Tristana teams do quite a fair bit in later stages of the game, where they pick up the Tristana, they go for a delayed lane swap, and then you end up in this race scenario where you have your bot lane pushing the bot lane turret, the Tristana is racing at the top lane side of the map, and you have this split map rather interesting scenario. Now, Gigabyte Marines, what they did not only achieves their goals in terms of setting SOAS behind, it also sets up them from the very beginning into this kind of split map scenario that forces them to play in this way. Now let's talk a little bit about Fnatic's team composition. They're playing what I call an ARAM composition, where they want to be pushing out the side lanes and they want to be rotating towards the mid lane, and then using the fact that they have so much crowd control in the Elise, the Ryze, as well as the Varus, to make plays happen in the mid lane. So it's two very different game plans over here. Once again, Gigabyte Marines, they want to be playing towards the side lanes. Fnatic, they want to be playing towards the mid lane. Push out the side lanes, rotate over, make a play in the mid lane, and Gigabyte Marines, they don't really have the best tools to deal with that as well. Wave clear, not a lot. They have a Cassidy in the mid lane, so their ability to respond to a Varus just walking up to the turret and having the threat of the ultimate is actually not very strong. Now this is the one that everyone was talking about. 5 minutes, Nocturne comes down, gets the ultimate off, and I actually think that this is all still kind of okay for Fnatic at this point of time. But in perspective from Fnatic's viewpoint, they have to be feeling very panicked and saying, oh, the Nocturne's so fat at this point of time, we need to find a solution. But actually every time he uses the ultimate, that goes on a very long cooldown, and the Nocturne actually isn't available to do a lot of things. And at this point of time, Gigabyte Marines, they're expanding a lot of things, they're doing a lot of things, but not achieving a lot with it. So actually everything is still kind of okay for Fnatic at this point of time in the game. Now let's jump a little bit forward to see where the game kind of normalizes. So I'm going to jump for 2 minutes. And this is where Gigabyte Marines, they take out the first tier turret in the top side of the map, and they say, okay, what's the next objective? And I feel that the objective selection here was a little bit weird. Like I said, they want to play towards the side lanes, they're going for the mid lane, and Fnatic is there to collapse onto them. Because it's a lot easier and it's a lot faster for the Fnatic to collapse into the mid lane, and they do actually trade 2 for 1 in this case, and they successfully defend the turret. At the same time, despite being so far behind because of their botched 5-man dive early on, Fnatic are able to compensate for the tempo because Gigabyte Marines make a mistake of their own by overcommitting towards the mid lane.
The biggest difference there, of course, is that Soaz is able to come towards them.
So right now the game has normalized. It's not this very crazy situation where Fnatic they need to be trying to save Soaz, and he's actually hit level 6. He actually has some form of experience at this point of time, and the catch-up mechanics of the game actually put him at the same level as the AD carry and the support. But now this is where Gigabyte Marines want him to be, because now the Castle has a goal as well as an experienced lead over him. When Castle completes the first item, Gigabyte Marines will be sending the Castle into the side lane, and the Maokai will be having a lot of pressure to respond towards that. If they do so choose to let the Maokai respond to the Kassadin. So right now, the map is split in this kind of situation. The Kassadin sent to the top side of the map. Gigabyte Marines, they're playing to the top side of the map. Whereas Fnatic, they're actually in a favorable situation because they just took the tier 1 outer turret and they have the Varus and the Karma on the bottom side of the map. The map is split this way. Gigabyte Marines, they control top side. Fnatic, they control bottom side. And they should be able to score a free dragon off this as well. But they don't really manage this well, because if you control the bottom side of the map, what you want to do is just control the river, and the dragon becomes a free objective for you to take. But instead, so what they want to do is push out the waves, rotate over to the mid lane, put pressure onto the Tristana and Lulu, and if the Tristana and Lulu make a mistake, you throw out some spells, you CC them down, and then you make a play happen. So this is Fnatic just pulling the trigger just way too early. The Varus is not in position, the Karma is not in position. They're just going for all these things, throwing all these spells at this point of time. And then right over here, without pushing out the wave, they're going to commit, once again, all these spells. In fact, Justice has to flash over the wall for this, just for a kill into Soaz. Oh, to Archie, sorry. And they don't get anything in return. This dragon was free to begin with. Even if they didn't make this play, the dragon would have an objective they would have been easily able to take. Just don't throw the spells, push out the lane, set things properly, and rotate to the mid lane. They commit all these things to it. And now the Tristana, hey, there's a free tower in the mid lane. They end up trading mid lane tier 1 for the dragon in this case. So they have this setup advantage, but they don't want to use it. They don't want to get the proper setup in. And Gigabyte Marines, they punish accordingly. Now, this is where I have to feel that Fnatic, they're starting to panic a little bit. So they don't realize that the game is still kind of close at this point of time, and we start to see a lot of very weird decisions coming through from them. They still do make the right call and say, okay, now we're going to take control of the top side of the map. I do feel that the lane allocations could be slightly better. The way after the recall from this, I would have preferred if Rice went to the top lane and then the Varus and Karma went to the mid lane instead, but maybe they're a little bit too scared of Nocturne Ultimate at this point of time, so they decide to put the Rice in the mid lane instead and then put Varus and Karma in the top lane. But this is where it starts to get very weird. Now, what they want to do here, once again, push out the lanes, and then control the rotation path between the top and mid lane. Because now these two lanes, they have priority of sorts. The top lane will be able to rotate over, and they should be able to use the fact that they have this pushing lane to control the river. But they send this entire big wave into their opponents, and they recall. And mind you, they just recall at this point of time. So when we talk about tempo in this kind of race scenario, so this entire time, Gigabyte Marines is racing with Fnatic. And Fnatic, they just recalled, they went back to base, and now they went to top lane. They collected one wave of minions. They can be getting map pressure, but they choose to recall instead. And through all this time, Gigabyte Marines is on the map. They're getting vision, and they're getting ahead of this race because they are able to set up. What all Fnatic has done is collect a wave and then recall. And I'm not sure what it's like because in game things can get very messy, things can get very complicated. But I can feel the panic coming through from Fnatic at this point of time, and this is where This is my favorite part of the game. Oh, not just yet. Okay, so they finally group form in mid, and this is what they should be looking for. Just move forward, put pressure on the turret. But they know the Tristana and Lulu are rotating over, and so as there's a teleport to join them, so they can't really put all too much pressure into this. So what they should be doing at this point of time is establishing control over the Rift Herald, establishing control at the top side of the map. And if you do realize one thing is that throughout this entire course of the game, Gigabyte Marines they've done one thing very consistently is consistently buy the raid wards. Because they know that in order to control their side of the map to get the rotation path secure for themselves, they need to buy the raid wards. And right now, Fnatic's inventory only Broxah has raid wards. Even if Justice he went for the second recall, he only went back to pick up a 4-pin idol, no raid wards for Justice. So Fnatic kind of dropping the ball in this case, and then I miss my favorite part of the game, the part where Soaz makes a mistake on the turret and then he dies again. So this once again accelerates Gigabyte Marine's pace, and through all this mismanagement of their own tempo, making the wrong recall decisions, they fail to buy raid wards. Gigabyte Marines are able to secure the rotation paths, they know which area of the map they control, and then they are able to raise a hit in objectives. But they're not without faults as well. They should know that the top side of the map is not theirs to take at all. Split the map in half, we take the bottom side, you take the top side. This Rift Herald should have been given over to Fnatic, and Gigabyte Marines to commit to it. I mean, Optimus goes in, drags in Archie in for the ride with him, and both of them end up dying in this case. They do respawn on the other side of the map, and the Nocturne does go down as well. Now, imagine if the Castle as well as the Galio were just pushing the mid lane at this point of time. Fnatic actually has to give up this Rift Herald, because they have to be worried about the high ground turret dropping. Nocturne out bot, they killed the Maokai and suddenly they're 5 men, and the Rift Herald was at 2000 HP, and Fnatic they start to panic. Do we recall? Do we try to defend this bottom lane tier 3 turret? And this is where they start to kind of really fall apart. So, yeah, and then this is once again, so people walking, we're going to see two examples of people walking to the areas of the map that they don't have control in. The first one is Caps, he walks into Levi. He's going to get bursted in this case. So if your split map, always keep on the side of the map you have control of. And if your Caps in this case, stick to the top side of the map. And if you're Levi in this case, you want to stick in the bottom side of the map. But he chooses to get greedy and goes to the top side jungle as well, and he gets picked off. And this is where I guess why some people are calling this game a clown fiesta of sorts. Okay, there's one last point I want to talk about. So we've talked about tempo and how you need to manage the tempo accordingly in these kind of race scenarios, and how you respect the split map management scenarios, and you stand towards the southern map you have control in, and you play to the southern map you have control of. The last thing here is probably the usage of the Rift Herald. I'm just gonna it's gonna be about now. So they've picked up the Rift Herald, and now Fnatic, I feel once again they're just not grasping the basics of lane pressure and how do you translate lane pressure to play with this kind of Varus Karma composition. Is something that was very prominent in spring. They throw the Rift Herald early. Okay, so how they should have done this is, first of all, there's no rush. There's no rush for them to drop the Rift Herald this early. They saw the Tristana and Lulu in the mid lane. They push out the mid lane. Same thing. What they want to do is control the river first. Control the river, get the Rise to stand away from the top side of the map, have the Rise rotate over the midway point, and then they look for opportunities to pick people off with the Varus ultimate. And if they can get that down, go for the fight, win the fight, and then drop the Rift Herald. Let's not forget the Fnatic in these 3.5v5 fights at this point of time, they're still rather strong. It is a very early 2-item spike from the Tristana, but Fnatic has a very strong front-to-back team fighting composition available for themselves, and crowd control lots stuns coming through. If Tristana gets stunned up, she's not able to output her damage. Same thing with Cassian as well as Nocturne. Once they commit, they can't really go out. Gigabyte is not very strong at team fighting at this phase in the game. Fnatic extremely strong. They're not really able to identify that. Gigabyte Marines punishes accordingly. Now, so just to recap, Very interesting adaptation to the meta coming through from Gigabyte Marines. This kind of lane swap strategies, I think, in this meta, where we're seeing a lot of ardent sensor supports, where they want to hyper power out their AD carry. This not just power levels the jungler, this also power levels the AD carry, and it sets the tank top laners behind because they don't have items and don't have experience, which makes them weak against assassin type mid laners or makes them very less effective in these team fights because of their relative strength as compared to the AD carries. We might see more of this, and I'm not surprised if we do see some current teams pick up this strategy as well. But I think Fnatic, they had the right ideas of how to deal with this. We see them making, okay, we go for the 5-man play at bot, but the execution not really there. When it reached the mid game, Fnatic all over the place. They didn't really control the rotation paths well. They didn't buy the raid wards, and they let Gigabyte Marines take too much of a tempo lead, which resulted in what we saw at the end, with them closing out the game. And with that, I hope I have been able to help you understand what happened in this game slightly better, and hopefully we see more of these kind of strategies being applied to deal with this tank top laner and ardent sensor support. Thanks for listening, guys.